There is a storm brewing in Cleveland, and it is louder than anything the NFL has seen in years. Quarterback battles are supposed to be quiet. They happen behind tinted windows. They happen in air-conditioned meeting rooms where coaches draw routes on whiteboards and argue about foot placement. They happen in practice fields where cameras are banned and reporters are kept at a distance. But this one is different. This one spilled into the open before the pads even clicked. The stats leak. The videos circulated. The comments from coaches echoed across sports radio like warning shots. And now the entire league is watching a franchise balance on a knife's edge. On one side stands Deshaun Watson, a quarterback carrying a contract so massive it bends the salary cap around it. A player brought in to rescue a city that has waited generations for a championship window. On the other side stands Shedeur Sanders, a rookie who arrived with a last name that moves merchandise, shifts algorithms, and forces veterans to glance over their shoulders during warm-ups. This is not a normal depth chart decision. This is a collision of finance, fame, and football reality, and the outcome will ripple far beyond Cleveland. The question everyone is asking sounds simple: who starts when the season opens? But the answer is tangled in money, optics, locker room politics, and the brutal mechanics of how the NFL actually operates. We have seen the mini-camp numbers. We have heard the carefully worded press conference quotes. We have watched the practice clips that get dissected frame by frame on social media. But none of that tells the full story. The real battle is happening in places the cameras never reach. It is happening in front office spreadsheets that calculate dead cap versus live hope. It is happening in coaching staff meetings where trust is measured in pre-snap diagnostics and third down conversions. It is happening in the quiet moments between reps where confidence is either forged or fractured. Stay with me, because what is unfolding in Cleveland is not just a quarterback competition. It is a masterclass in how the NFL really works, and there is a specific window on the calendar that insiders are already circling, a moment where the leverage shifts. A week where the narrative flips, and once that switch is pulled, there is no rewinding the tape. Let's start with the contract, because you cannot understand this situation without understanding the financial gravity holding it together. Deshaun Watson's deal is not just a paycheck. It is a franchise-altering commitment, $230 million fully guaranteed. That number does not just sit on a ledger. It dictates roster construction. It influences draft strategy. It shapes coaching job security. When an organization hands out that kind of money, they are not just buying a quarterback. They are buying a timeline. They are buying the belief that the next 5 to 7 years will revolve around one player's right arm. Bench a contract like that and you are not just making a football decision. You are admitting a catastrophic miscalculation. You are telling sponsors, season ticket holders, and the national media that the front office misread the board. And in a league where optics drive revenue, that admission carries a price tag of its own. Think about the math from a management perspective. If Watson spends the season on the sideline, the Browns will have paid $230 million for roughly 19 starts in a Browns uniform. That is not just inefficient. That is historically unprecedented. NFL owners do not operate on patience when 9-figure guarantees are on the line. They operate on damage control. They operate on the hope that the investment will eventually stabilize. That is why Watson will walk into training camp as QB1, not because the competition is close, not because the tape demands it, but because the financial architecture of the team requires it. You do not pull a quarterback with that contract unless the on-field product becomes unwatchable or the locker room fractures beyond repair. Until then, the money buys reps. The money buys first-team snaps. The money buys the benefit of the doubt, and that reality shapes every decision the coaching staff makes from now until September. But here's where the tension thickens. Money buys time, but it does not buy touchdowns. It does not buy clean pockets. It does not buy the ability to read disguised coverages at NFL speed. Watson knows this. The coaches know this. The front office knows this. And that knowledge creates a pressure cooker that simmers every single day. Watson is not just competing against a rookie. He is competing against his own contract. He is competing against the expectations that came with it. He is competing against the whispers that follow him from city to city. Reports suggest that internal meetings have already addressed the psychological weight of the deal, with staff members emphasizing the need to isolate football from finance. It's been said that Watson has responded by doubling down on film study, arriving earlier, staying later, and treating every OTA rep like a regular season third down. Whether that translates to Sunday is the million-dollar question, or rather the $230 million question. And the answer will not come from a spreadsheet. It will come from the turf. Now shift the lens to the other side of the room. Shedeur Sanders did not arrive in Cleveland through the traditional pipeline. He arrived through a draft slide that confused analysts, ignited fan bases, and turned a fifth-round selection into a national talking point. In a normal year, a quarterback taken in that range competes for a clipboard. He learns the system. He takes scout team reps. He hopes to survive final cuts and maybe dress for a handful of games. But Sanders is not operating in a normal year. He is operating in an era where last names carry algorithmic weight, where social media engagement influences merchandise sales, where a single practice clip can generate more impressions than a preseason victory, and that reality changes the entire dynamic of the quarterback room. If his last name was anything else, this conversation would not exist. Fans would look at his college production. They would see 10 touchdowns and 7 interceptions in limited stretches. They would note a record that hovered around 2 wins in certain conference stretches. They would watch his footwork, measure his release, and file him away as a developmental prospect with upside but clear questions. But the Sanders brand does not allow for quiet development. It demands attention. It demands timeline projections. It demands weekly updates on rep counts and completion percentages. And that external noise bleeds into the facility. It bleeds into the locker room. It bleeds into the way coaches phrase their answers when the microphones turn on. Rumors suggest that marketing departments have already mapped out campaign strategies around his potential debut, while football operations staff have privately emphasized the need to shield him from premature expectations. It's been said that veteran players have noticed the cameras lingering longer during his drills, and that subtle shift in attention changes the rhythm of practice. Whether that helps or hurts his development remains to be seen, but one thing is certain. The spotlight does not wait for readiness, it shines anyway, and that brings us to the mini-camp numbers that have fueled so much debate. Watson completed 90 of 133 attempts, 13 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Sanders completed 79 of 113, 5 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. On the surface, it looks like a split decision. Watson shows volume and downfield aggression. Sanders shows efficiency and ball placement. But minicamp statistics are notoriously deceptive. They are collected in controlled environments. Defenses are not allowed to hit. Blitz packages are simplified. Coverage shells are predictable. Playbooks are trimmed to prevent mental errors. What looks like elite decision-making in June often collapses under September pressure. Coaches know this. Scouts know this. Veterans know this. That is why the real evaluation happens away from the stat sheet. What staff members actually grade is invisible to the public eye. They track pre-snap identification. They measure how quickly a quarterback processes safety rotation. They watch footwork under simulated pressure. They note whether the quarterback climbs the pocket with purpose or drifts into danger. They evaluate huddle command, play call cadence, and the ability to adjust protections when the defensive front shifts. Watson has years of NFL reps to draw from. He has seen every disguise. He has felt every blitz pattern. He knows how to manipulate linebackers with eye discipline. Sanders is still building that database. He is still learning how NFL defensive coordinators lie with alignment and tell the truth with motion. That learning curve is steep. It is unforgiving, and it cannot be rushed, but here is the catch. The public does not grade pre-snap diagnostics. The public grades highlights. The public grades touchdowns. The public grades the moments that fit into a 15-second clip. And that disconnect between what coaches value and what fans consume is where the friction begins. There was one clip in particular that circulated widely. Sanders dropping back, reading his progression, and firing a pass that got tipped by a defender raising a single hand. Number 51. The ball fluttered incomplete. It was a minor moment, a routine practice rep, but it sparked conversations. Some called it a sign of delayed processing. Others called it a product of trimmed practice rules. A few brushed it off as meaningless June football. But in a quarterback battle this magnified, nothing is meaningless. Every throw is dissected. Every footstep is analyzed. Every hesitation is amplified. And that amplification creates a psychological environment where mistakes feel heavier and successes feel temporary. Watson has lived in that environment before. He knows how to compartmentalize. Sanders is experiencing it for the first time. How he handles the weight of constant evaluation will determine whether he thrives or fractures when the games actually count. Now we have to talk about the coaching staff because their words are never accidental. When Todd Monken stood at the podium and mentioned having 2 starters at quarterback, then quickly corrected himself to say they only have 1, he was not stumbling. He was signaling. Coaches do not speak in errors. They speak in calculated leaks. They use press conferences to manage egos, motivate veterans, and prepare rosters for contingency plans. Saying you have 2 starters is a psychological lever. It tells the veteran that his job is not safe. It tells the rookie that the door is cracked. It tells the offensive line that they must build chemistry with both players. It tells the media that the competition is real, even if the financial reality says otherwise. And that messaging serves a purpose. It keeps Watson sharp. It keeps Sanders engaged. It keeps the entire offense from growing complacent. But walking that tightrope is dangerous. Push the veteran too hard and you risk fracturing his confidence. Elevate the rookie too quickly and you risk creating entitlement before readiness. Monken has been around the league long enough to know how quickly quarterback rooms can turn toxic. He has seen what happens when trust erodes. He has watched offenses stall because the guy under center was playing not to lose instead of playing to win. That is why his messaging is deliberately ambiguous. He wants Watson to feel the heat without burning. He wants Sanders to feel the opportunity without overreaching. He wants the offense to operate with urgency, not anxiety. And that balance is nearly impossible to maintain when the national media is tracking every rep count and every depth chart update. Behind closed doors, the playbook distribution tells a quieter story. Veterans typically receive the full installation. They get the audibles, the protection checks, the situational packages, the red zone variations, the 2-minute drill adjustments. Rookies receive a trimmed version. They get the core concepts, the high percentage reads, the plays that minimize mental errors. That is not an insult. It is a survival mechanism. NFL defenses exploit hesitation. They punish uncertainty. They disguise pressure until the snap and then attack the seams. A rookie who tries to process the entire playbook in August will drown by September, so coaches scale it back. They build confidence through repetition. They expand the menu only when the quarterback proves he can handle the weight. That means Sanders might look sharper in practice because he is operating within a narrower framework. Watson might look slower because he is managing the entire system. Comparing the two in June is like comparing a sprinter to a marathon runner during warm-ups. The real test comes when the gun fires and the distance matters. History does not repeat itself, but it leaves fingerprints everywhere. If you want to understand how the situation will likely unfold, you have to look at the quarterbacks who actually stole jobs as late-round picks or overlooked backups. Dak Prescott, Kirk Cousins, Brock Purdy, Jordan Love, Tony Romo. Notice the pattern. None of them won the job through a fair competition. None of them walked into September as the starter because they outplayed a highly paid veteran in August. Every single one of them got the keys because of an injury, a collapse, or a front office surrender. Dak only started because Romo fractured his back. Cousins only started because Griffin's body broke down. Purdy only started because Garoppolo's foot gave out and Lance's ankle snapped. Only started because Rodgers demanded out and the Packers finally pulled the trigger after years of patience. The NFL does not hand out opportunities at quarterback, it hands out survival tests, and you only get the test when the starter is removed from the equation. That is the brutal reality Sanders is facing. As much as fans want to see him play, the league structure protects the investment. The team owes Watson the runway. They owe him the chance to prove the contract was justified. They owe him the grace period that comes with 9-figure guarantees. Unless Watson gets hurt or unless the offense becomes completely unfunctional, Sanders will wait. And waiting is its own kind of pressure. It requires patience. It requires humility. It requires the ability to stay ready without knowing when the call will come. Some quarterbacks thrive in that role. They study, they absorb, they treat every practice rep like a game snapshot. Others fracture under the uncertainty. They press. They force throws. They try to make highlight plays instead of smart plays. And when the opportunity finally arrives, they are already out of rhythm. But let's be clear about what happens if that door actually opens. If Sanders gets the nod, whether through injury or performance, he cannot just play adequately. He has to play immediately. He has to win games. He has to command the huddle. He has to limit critical mistakes. He has to handle defensive adjustments that shift weekly. The league does not grade on a curve for rookies, it grades on results. Dak went 13-3 as a rookie. He led the Cowboys to the playoffs. He played with poise beyond his years. Cousins posted winning records when he finally took over. He proved he could carry an offense. Purdy stepped into a loaded roster and played like a veteran from day one. Love waited years, then delivered a playoff-caliber season when the leash was finally handed over. The standard is not participation. The standard is production. And if Sanders cannot meet that standard the moment he steps on the field, the narrative will harden instantly. He will be labeled as a guy who got his shot and could not hold it. And in the NFL, that label sticks longer than any highlight reel. There is also the division reality to consider. The AFC North does not care about storylines. It does not care about draft rounds. It does not care about social media engagement or merchandise sales. It cares about violence, precision, and quarterly execution. Cincinnati has Burrow. Baltimore has Lamar. Pittsburgh always fields a defense that punishes hesitation. The margin for error in this division is non-existent. You cannot afford to play quarterback roulette and expect to survive December. You need stability. You need a guy who can handle simulated pressures, recognize trap coverages, and get the ball out before the pocket collapses. If Watson gives the Browns the best chance to operate within that environment, he stays on the field. If Sanders offers higher upside but carries more risk, the coaching staff has to weigh whether the division will exploit that risk before the rookie can adjust. Some analysts have pointed out that Cleveland's roster construction suggests a narrower window than fans want to admit. The offensive line has questions. The receiving core lacks proven separation artists. The running game is talented but dependent on scheme consistency. If the roster is not built to withstand a learning curve, then playing a rookie becomes a luxury the team cannot afford. But there is another angle. If the season is already projecting as an uphill climb, why not accelerate the timeline? Why not see what Sanders can do against NFL speed? Why not gather live data instead of waiting for next year? That is the cynical approach, but it is not uncommon. Franchises have burned seasons to evaluate quarterbacks before. They have accepted short-term pain for long-term clarity. The question is whether Cleveland's front office is willing to make that trade, or whether they are locked into protecting the investment until the math forces their hand. Opposing defensive coordinators are already mapping out both scenarios. They are building game plans for Watson's tendencies. They are studying his footwork under pressure. They are noting his preferred progressions and his blind spots against disguised coverage. But they are also pulling Sanders' college tape. They are tracking his release timing. They are identifying his comfort zones and his panic triggers. If Cleveland shows uncertainty at quarterback, those coordinators will attack it. They will send simulated pressures. They will rotate safeties late. They will play press coverage on the outside and force the quarterback to make rapid decisions. Quarterback uncertainty is a weakness, And in the AFC North, weaknesses get exploited until they break. The Browns know this. The coaches know this. The players know this. That is why the decision is not just about who throws the ball better in August. It is about who can survive the schematic warfare that begins in September. Now we have to talk about the mental war, because football is played with the body but won with the mind. Watson is carrying more than a playbook. He is carrying the weight of a contract that defines the franchise's payroll. He is carrying the expectations of a fan base that has endured decades of heartbreak. He is carrying the noise that follows him from city to city, the whispers that never fully fade, the headlines that resurface every time he throws an interception. He has to block all of that out. He has to treat every snap like a clean slate. He has to play with the kind of quiet arrogance that separates good quarterbacks from great ones. If he doubts himself, the defense will sense it. Pass rushers will widen their stances. Linebackers will jump routes. Safeties will cheat downhill. The game speeds up when confidence drops, and once it speeds up, it is nearly impossible to slow it down. Sanders is fighting a different mental battle. He is the newcomer, the rookie, the guy who has to earn respect before he can command it. Veterans test rookies. They challenge them in meetings. They question their cadence. They watch how they handle mistakes. They see if they point fingers or take ownership. Sanders has grown up in the spotlight. He has handled cameras since high school. He has played under national scrutiny. He knows how to smile through criticism and keep working. But the NFL is a different frequency. The hits are harder. The windows are tighter. The mental processing required on 3rd and 8 against a disguised nickel package is nothing like college football. There's a moment for every rookie where the speed catches up to them, where the game feels like it is moving in fast forward. How they respond in that moment defines their career. Some panic, some freeze, some adapt. Sanders will face that moment. It is not a matter of if, it is a matter of when. And his reaction will tell the coaching staff everything they need to know. The locker room dynamic adds another layer. Quarterback battles are never just about 2 players. They are about 53 men choosing who to trust. Offensive linemen need to know who will get the ball out on time. Receivers need to know who will put the throw where only they can catch it. Running backs need to know who will check into the right protection when the blitz comes. If the room splits, the offense fractures. If the room unites behind one guy, the offense stabilizes. That is why coaches monitor body language as closely as completion percentage. They watch who commands the huddle. They watch who stays late to throw with receivers. They watch who takes responsibility when a play breaks down. Leadership is not announced. It is earned in quiet moments, and those quiet moments are happening right now, away from the cameras, away from the microphones, away from the social media debates. There is a timeline floating through league circles, and it keeps landing on the same window. Week 6, Week 7, the idea is straightforward. Watson starts the season. He gets the first month to find his rhythm. He gets the benefit of the doubt. He gets the chance to prove the contract was justified. But if the offense stalls, if the points do not come, if the turnovers pile up, the pressure will become unbearable. Fans will chant for the rookie. Media will demand the switch. Sponsors will ask questions. The front office will run the math. And by mid-October, the conversation will shift from patience to survival. That is the danger zone. That is the tipping point. That is the moment where financial commitment collides with on-field reality. And when those two forces crash, something has to give. For Watson, that timeline is a countdown. He knows he does not have all year. He knows the leash is shorter than the contract suggests. He knows that 5 or 6 games might be all he gets to silence the noise. That is a heavy burden to carry into September, but it is also a familiar one. He has played under scrutiny before. He has handled hostile crowds. He has navigated media storms. He knows how to compartmentalize. The question is whether his body and his timing will align with his mindset, whether his footwork will stay clean under pressure, whether his progressions will stay sharp against disguised shells, whether he can play free instead of playing careful, because careful quarterbacks get benched. Free quarterbacks win games, and the difference between the two is often just a fraction of a second. For Sanders, that timeline is a preparation deadline. He cannot control when the call comes. He can only control what he does while he waits. He has to absorb the playbook. He has to build timing with receivers. He has to learn how to read NFL defenses without the luxury of college hash marks and widened numbers. He has to stay ready without pressing. He has to treat every scout team rep like a game snapshot. He has to keep his confidence high without crossing into arrogance. That is a difficult balance, but it is a necessary one. Because when the opportunity arrives, it will not come with a warning. It will come with a phone call, a clipboard handoff, a sudden shift in the depth chart, and he will have to step onto the field knowing that the next 3 hours will define how the league views him for years. The media machine will not slow down. It will accelerate. Every incomplete pass will be analyzed. Every sideline shot will be dissected. Every press conference quote will be stretched into headlines. That is the reality of modern football. The game is played on grass, but the narrative is built on screens. And narratives have power. They influence fan patience. They influence coaching job security. They influence front office decisions. If the narrative turns against Watson, the pressure will multiply. If the narrative elevates Sanders prematurely, the expectations will become unrealistic. The coaching staff knows this. They are trying to control the temperature. They are trying to keep the focus on football, not fiction. But in a market this hungry for a winner, fiction often spreads faster than facts. There is also the financial aftermath to consider. If Watson is benched, the contract does not disappear. The money still counts against the cap. The dead cap implications stretch into future years. The restructuring options shrink. The flexibility vanishes. That is why front offices hesitate. That is why they wait. That is why they give expensive quarterbacks every possible chance to right the ship. Bench him too early and you waste the investment. Bench him too late and you waste the season. Finding the exact moment to pull the trigger is nearly impossible. It requires cold calculation. It requires ignoring emotion. It requires accepting that sometimes the best decision is the most painful one. And that is why the Week 6 window keeps appearing in conversations. It is the mathematical midpoint between patience and panic, the moment where the data becomes undeniable, the moment where the franchise has to choose between protecting the past or betting on the future. But let's be honest about what happens if the switch actually flips. If Sanders takes the field, the entire ecosystem shifts. The offensive line has to adjust to a different cadence. The receivers have to recalibrate their routes. The running backs have to learn new protection checks. The play caller has to tailor the script to a different skill set. The defense has to prepare for a different tempo. The media has to rewrite the storyline. The fans have to reset their expectations. A quarterback change is not just a personnel move. It is a cultural reset. It changes the rhythm of the facility. It changes the tone of the locker room. It changes the way the city talks about the team on Monday mornings. And that weight falls entirely on the shoulders of the guy who steps under center. Sanders would have to handle all of that instantly. He would not get a grace period. He would not get a learning curve. He would get a scoreboard, a clock, and a defense designed to confuse him. He would have to command the huddle with authority. He would have to make pre-snap adjustments without hesitation. He would have to take hits and get back up like he has been doing it for years. He would have to ignore the cameras, the chants, the headlines, the social media notifications, the former players on television dissecting his footwork. He would have to play football, just football. And in a league that thrives on noise, that is the hardest thing to do. Watson knows what that feels like. He has lived in the center of the storm. He has felt the weight of expectations. He has handled the criticism. He has navigated the injuries, the roster changes, the coaching turnovers, the schematic shifts. He has seen how quickly the league turns on you when the wins stop coming. He has also seen how quickly it embraces you when you deliver. That experience is valuable. It cannot be taught, it cannot be simulated, it has to be lived. And that is why the coaching staff will lean on him until they absolutely cannot. Because experience buys stability, stability buys time, time buys wins. And wins are the only currency that matters when the calendar hits December. But experience also carries baggage. It carries habits, it carries tendencies, it carries the memory of past mistakes that can resurface under pressure. If Watson plays cautiously, the offense will stall. If he forces throws, the turnovers will pile up. If he hesitates, the pass rush will feast. The margin between success and failure is razor thin, and it gets thinner every year. The league evolves, defenses get faster. Schemes get more complex. Quarterbacks who do not adapt get left behind. Watson has shown flashes of his old self. He has shown the arm talent. He has shown the mobility. He has shown the ability to extend plays and create something from nothing. But consistency is the missing piece. And consistency is what separates good quarterbacks from franchise quarterbacks. Sanders has the opposite challenge. He has the arm, he has the poise, he has the confidence, but he lacks the database. He lacks the reps against NFL speed. He lacks the muscle memory that comes from reading disguised coverages week after week. He has to build that database from scratch. He has to learn how to manipulate safeties with his eyes. He has to learn how to climb the pocket without drifting. He has to learn how to take what the defense gives him instead of chasing the highlight. That learning process takes time, and time is the one thing Cleveland might not have. If the season starts slipping, the patience will evaporate. The calls for change will grow louder, and the rookie will be thrust into a situation that demands veteran execution. That is the paradox of modern quarterback development. Fans want instant results. Front offices want long-term stability. Coaches want weekly execution, and the player is caught in the middle trying to satisfy all three while learning how to survive at the highest level. Some thrive under that pressure. They use it as fuel, they let it sharpen their focus, they embrace the noise and turn it into momentum. Others fracture, they press, they try to do too much, they lose their mechanics, they lose their rhythm, they lose their confidence, and once confidence drops, the game becomes impossible. The windows shrink, the speed increases, the mistakes multiply, and the bench gets closer. Cleveland is walking that line right now. Every practice rep is a data point, every press conference is a signal. Every stat line is a talking point, but the real evaluation is happening in the quiet moments, in the film room, in the walkthroughs, in the sideline conversations, in the way a quarterback handles a missed assignment, in the way he responds to a blown protection, in the way he leads the 2-minute drill when the starters are tired and the backups are watching. Those moments do not make headlines, but they make decisions. And the decision that comes out of this camp will shape the next 3 years of the franchise. There is no perfect answer. There is only the best available option. If Watson plays like the player the Browns paid for, the conversation ends. The rookie waits. The offense stabilizes. The city exhales. If Watson struggles, the pressure mounts. The timeline accelerates. The switch becomes inevitable. And Sanders gets the chance to prove whether the hype was justified or misplaced. Either way, the outcome will be messy. It will be debated, it will be dissected, it will be remembered, because quarterback decisions are never just about football. They are about identity, they are about direction, they are about who a franchise believes it is and who it wants to become. And that is why this story matters beyond Cleveland. It is a reflection of how the NFL operates in the modern era, where contracts dictate opportunities, where last names drive narratives, where patience collides with panic, where development clashes with expectation, where the past fights the future for control of the present. Every franchise faces this crossroads eventually. Some navigate it smoothly, some fracture under the weight, some find clarity, some find chaos. Cleveland is in the middle of it right now, and the rest of the league is watching to see which path they choose. The tape will tell the truth, the scoreboard will confirm it, the standings will cement it. Everything else is just noise. The contract does not throw touchdowns. The last name does not read coverages. The headlines do not block blitzes. Only the quarterback does that. Only the guy under center. Only the one who takes the snap, scans the field, makes the decision, and lives with the result. That is the beauty of the position. That is the brutality of it. That is why we watch. That is why we debate. That is why we care. So as training camp approaches, keep your eyes on the details, not the highlights, not the quotes, not the social media clips. Watch the footwork, watch the pre-snap adjustment, watch the huddle command, watch the sideline demeanor, watch how each player handles adversity, watch how the coaches distribute reps, watch how the offensive line reacts to cadence changes, watch how the receivers adjust to timing shifts. The answers are there, they are just hidden in plain sight, and when the season opens, the truth will no longer be theoretical. It will be live, it will be undeniable. It will be written in wins and losses. This is more than a depth chart decision. This is a franchise-defining moment. It is about money versus merit. It is about patience versus panic. It is about protecting an investment or betting on a vision. It is about who leads the team into battle and who watches from the sideline. It is about the present colliding with the future. It is about to play out in real time under bright lights, with millions watching, with careers hanging in the balance, with a city holding its breath. Thank you for staying with me through this breakdown. If this perspective shifted how you view the situation, if it gave you a clearer lens on what is actually happening behind the headlines, make sure you subscribe. We are building a community that looks past the noise and focuses on the mechanics of the game. Hit the bell so you never miss an update. Because when the depth chart changes, when the first snap is taken, when the narrative shifts, we will be here to break it down frame by frame. No fluff, no filler, just football, finance, and the truth behind the tape. Keep watching, keep questioning, keep trusting the process. Because the season is coming, and when it arrives, the talking stops, the playing begins, and everything we have discussed will be tested in real time.